Mitch Westfall here with CagedInsider.com, here with Bellator founder Bjorn Rebney. Bjorn, I just wanted to get a quick couple questions in. So how much sleep have you gotten in the last couple months?
Not a lot. Probably, I think I'm probably averaging about 4 hours a night. And then I start getting text messages and emails that start bouncing in and waking me up, you know, at about 4 when people start rolling into the office at 7 on the East Coast. So not a lot, but it's, I've had much worse jobs, I can tell you that.
Yeah, well, for those of you who don't know, Bellator is actually making their debut on Spike this Thursday in Irvine, California. It's a very big deal. So, yeah, you know, I was just kind of curious to see, you know, you were talking earlier, you know, how you're always up doing emails, you know, your team's always out working. You know, how much work has gone into this event kind of prior to prior to events like that?
Oh, obviously a lot more. I mean, you know, this is our premiere on Spike, and I mean, they wrote the book on MMA programming, and it's kind of, there's a expectation amongst fight fans that when you're on Spike, it's going to be at a certain level. So we've worked hand in hand with our partners at Spike on everything from graphics packages to show opens to feature pieces and stories behind the fighters to just keeping the whole show sticky, keeping everything tied together as well as humanly possible. So, there's been a lot of work that's gone into this, and also, you know, we've had a year and a half to do it. I mean, MTV2 was a great network, but it was a hold pattern for us to get to Spike. And so we had a lot of time to work through everything we wanted to change and alter to make this as good as it can be as we kicked off.
Now, one other thing I was kind of wondering, you know, they're talking about the Mike Chandler fight coming up Thursday. It's going to be a huge, crazy fight. Do you think maybe a lot of people are saying Bellator could have their Griffin Bonner moment, you know, on Spike as the UFC did? Do you think something like that could happen this Thursday?
I don't know. I think that moment in time, back when you know, when Spike launched The Ultimate Fighter, the closeout of that first season, it was a magical kind of combination of events. It was good for the sport. It was really good for the sport because a lot of people tuned in out of curiosity and they got to see that fight. That was a very, as we all know, that was a very guts and glory centric type of fight. That was an old school kind of throw for the fences type of battle. You know, Chandler, I think, is probably one of the, if you were just objectively kind of rating everything, one of the top 5 lightweights on the face of the earth. Han belongs in that conversation as well, and technically these guys are at a very, very high level. That was a different time in our game. You know, I mean, would I love to see a fight that has that kind of back and forth and ebb and flow? I would love to, but I think that fight was kind of an anomaly because of the level that they were at and just the fact that they were just giving it all in the toughest fight many of us have ever seen inside of a cage. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, I think stylistically, I think Han and Chandler bring some things to the table that will be very, very interesting. You know, Chandler uses his wrestling to set up his hands. Han's got maybe the heaviest hips in all of MMA, and taking him off his feet is virtually impossible. I mean, takedowns on Rick Han are very, very difficult to pull off. And his hands have looked amazing. He brought his power with him to 55. So does it have the makings of something incredible? Yeah. But I think the one-punch knockout power that Rick Han has and that Mike Chandler has, you've seen it. Yeah. You know, I mean, he put Eddie down 4 times in that fight. The Gono fight subsequent to it was, I mean, it's just, he's, I don't know. It could go a lot of different ways, but it sure does have electricity written all over it.
Now, the debut on Spike Thursday, you guys have 2 title fights. The debut of the tournament, you know, Bob Alou's debut. You know, you guys really, I feel like you came out gun swinging, you know. Yep. Is that something you guys had, you know, immediately thought right when you guys got the deal with Spike and knew when the debut show was going to be? You're like, we got to hit them hard, you know, and really show what Bellator is all about?
Well, you know, I've been working with Kevin Kay at Spike, who heads up Spike Network now for, you know, almost 2 full years. So as this started to come into focus, we looked at a bunch of different scenarios, a bunch of different fights that could have conceptually been on this first show. And then, you know, we didn't want to spend everything on the first show. We wanted an incredible second, third, and fourth show as well before we went into the semifinals. So there were a lot of different scenarios, but we looked at it. And then when we had the fan vote for the fight, and Daly was going to fight, you know, Daly was going to fight War Machine, was going to fight John, and then that fight fell out because Daly can't get into the country and John messed up his knee. We said, let's move Pitbull Curran to the first fight. The first punch is thrown. Let's do Pitbull Curran. So it's pretty exciting. I mean, it's like I got a lot of work to do on Thursday night, and I've got a lot of responsibilities, the executive producer of the show. But what I would like more than anything is just people to I could put on a headset and just watch those fights CageSide, because they should be really pretty cool.
Now I know history promoters don't really like to do this, but I was kind of curious. Is there one or two fights on the card that you're more looking really excited about?
I think those 2 world title fights, just because the guys are at such an elite world-class level. I mean, Pitbull, Curran, I think are 2. I think Curran is, you can argue whether he's the best or the second best, but he's surely in the top 2 in the world at 45, and then Pitbull's probably in the top 6, 7 in the world at 45. And then Hahn Chandler, just stylistically, that matchup is crazy in terms of what it will probably give rise to. So I think those 2 fights. The Seth Petrozelli always gives entertaining performances, and Zoe is tailor-made for that. So that's a great fight. I mean, Babalu's opponent in this fight is really, really talented. But I know Babalu's in shape because I just saw him about a week ago. He's ready to rock and roll. I would say the 2 world title fights is probably what I'm most excited about.
Okay. Now, I just kind of wanted to switch gears here real quick, just a couple more questions, and then I'll let you go. I caught an interview the other day of Dana White, and the guy asked him what it was like being the promotion killer. He deemed him in the interview. And, he kind of discarded it, threw it down, said it wasn't true at all. But I kind of wondered when I caught that interview, I kind of wondered what your thoughts about that would be.
I don't know. I mean, the reality is that we're in a good spot. I mean, we're majority owned by Viacom. It's one of the largest, most powerful, well-funded, and successful entertainment companies on the face of the universe. And they have a heavy, heavy vested interest in Bellator. So I feel really good about where we are right now. Our partners are heavily vested in the space. They know MMA better than anybody in the history of television. They know it better than anybody in television today. And they're responsible for the crossover of the game. So I think we're in a really, really good spot, in a much different spot than the elites, IFLs, Bowdogs, Affliction, Strike Forces, Pride, Dreams, anybody has ever been in. And also, we're cash flow positive now, which is typically takes people a long time to get to, but we've reached that plateau. So on a monthly basis, we make more than we spend, which is good. It's really good in this game. Only one other group's ever done it, and that's the UFC. So I'm pretty confident about where we're going next.
Right. Now, the fact that you do have this good deal with Spike, do you attribute any of that to the past success that UFC had with them, that they'd want to keep dealing with MMA?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Spike is the network for MMA, and those guys were heavily, heavily vested in mixed martial arts. I mean, I've worked with a lot of different television networks over the last 20 years. I've worked with some giants and Fox and ESPN and others. I talked to the head of marketing and creative at Spike, or I talked to the president of the network or the head of digital, and they're talking to me about undercard guys. I mean, they know the game backward and forward. They know who's fighting and when, who's up and coming, who's the potential next guy, what a title defense would look like, styles, etc. They just know the game. So I mean, that makes that partnership so tight. I never have to explain MMA or MMA thinking to our TV partners. I look at pieces and they've got suggestions and they all make sense, or they go, oh, you should really pull that highlight from Bellator 16 when this guy did that, and you're like, dude, how do you know that? And they do. So it's just such a different dynamic for somebody like me who's had to explain the sport to partners at prior partnerships. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you'd sit down with executives and they don't know it, they hadn't been to events, they've never rolled. I mean, it's just a different vibe.
Now, this is my last question. I don't know how much you even want to talk about or touch on it. It's been, headlines at MMA Focus a lot lately. Just the Eddie Alvarez Bellator situation right now, kind of how you've been feeling about it and how it's kind of taken a toll on you the past couple months.
Not much of a toll per se, but I think the thing that's most discouraging about it is that Eddie and I had a very tight relationship for about 4 years, and the last 3 weeks have not been such a tight relationship. You know what I mean? I mean, I would go as far as to say, we're pretty good friends over a 4-year period. And that's, I think, the most discouraging thing about it, is just that. And, look, it's a disagreement. It's going to come to a resolution. We're either going to settle it and he's going to be fighting in the Bellator cage, or it's going to go a different route. My hope is it gets settled sooner rather than later.
Well, like we said, Bellator debut this Thursday in Irvine, California on Spike TV. Make sure you tune in. Any final words to the fans or anybody out there?
Just tune in Thursday. You said it, brother.
All right. Thank you.